Welcome to this video about how to properly set up a frame that you got off the shelf somewhere and set it up properly so that it can hang on the wall using D-rings and a wire. So let me show you how we're going to do it. I'm going to first of all take off the back, and I'll take out all the inside parts, including the glass. And I'll set those aside for now. Then I have my basic frame. And what I'm going to be putting on are called D-rings. D-rings look like this. They bend back and forth, and they're meant to go this way across the frame so that the wire stretches from one D-ring to another. They are not meant to go this way. They need to be oriented. And so when you're picking a frame out, consider the fact that these D-rings are going to need something to attach to. They're going to need a big enough space on your frame. And so if you have a frame that is really narrow, you might not have room to attach D-frames or D-rings. And so you might have to reconsider the frame you're using. This one is about 3/4 of an inch wide. And I think that'll be just fine. So typically I like to try to place the wire about approximately 1/3 the way from the top. So if we measure this, it's 11 inches. So let's pretend that 1/3 is approximately 3.5 inches. So I'm going to grab my pencil and I'm just going to put a mark there. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Okay, I have my D-rings. They come with screws, and so I'm going to need some holes in my frame. I found, for me, the easiest way to do this is using this tool called an awl, A-W-L. And I bought it for just a few dollars on Amazon, but anything that has a sharp pointy tip will work. You could use a drill as well, but be really careful. You don't want to go too deep. The purpose of this is just to get a starter hole for your screw. So I want the D-ring to sit so the folding part is fairly flush with this inside edge of the frame. I don't want it sticking out here over the artwork. So I want it somewhere in that ballpark. So I'm gonna say I want a hole right about there, and I just put it in and use just gentle, persistent pressure where I'm going back and forth until I have a hole big enough to place a starter screw. Some D-rings have a really obvious top side and bottom side. I'm going to say this is the bottom side since I can see more of this wire and this looks a little tighter. So I want to make sure the nice side is facing out. And then I just have to use a screwdriver. Here's my Phillips screwdriver. And I'm screwing that D-ring in. Trying to make sure it's pretty straight across when I tighten it. Okay, now for the other side. Same thing, I want to make sure the D-ring is the same side up as that so that it doesn't look weird. And I want this bendy area to be kind of flush with the inside of the frame. So I'm going to say somewhere in this ballpark. Depending on how hard the wood is for your frame, this may take more or less strength. Okay, I'm double checking again that I don't put the D-ring on upside down. It would work just fine upside down. It's just it wouldn't be the same appearance as the other D-ring. Screwing it on. All these little details matter when you're trying to show your art publicly in an exhibition. Almost all of them are going to require something similar to this. And with a little luck, maybe you'll sell your art and then you'll have someone buying it and you want them to think that you've hung it professionally as well. Okay, now I have wire that I have to put on. I prefer using wire that has not been wrapped. You can buy wire that's kind of coated. I think it's called coated wire. That's coated with this thin layer of plastic. The only reason I don't care for it is that when I'm wrapping it around the D-rings, it doesn't tend to hold its shape as well. It tends to want to undo itself. But that said, you know, lots of people love the wrapped wire. So just use whichever you want. This is wire that is made for up to 30 pounds. And for my bigger pictures, I'll use for up to 50 pounds or even larger. So the larger the picture, the thicker the wire. And let's see if I can find the beginning of this wire. I kind of made a mess of it. I'm going to start on this side. So I put some wire through the D-ring and I leave, I guess that's about 3 inches for this size frame. If I'm doing a big frame, I might leave 6 inches. And I just fold it down, but I don't immediately start wrapping it around. Instead, I bring my wire through the D-ring a second time, kind of pulling it taut. And what I end up with then are 2 loops of wire wrapped around my D-ring. Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit to show you that. Okay, you can see I have a loop here and a loop there that are going around this D-ring. I'm going to try to snug those up a little bit, as much as I can. But what this does, it helps to prevent it from slipping off. If I was just to loop this through once, then sometimes that loosens up and your picture can fall off the wall. So by looping it through twice, it helps save you. And then you just simply take this wire, and I like to do a fairly tight, wind, but something that's not too spread out, like this. See, I'm going around and around. Okay, so I have to measure. I need to leave about, I'd say this much extra so that I have room to wind it. And I'm going to use my little snippers, wire snippers here, just to snip that off, like that. If your wire is small enough, scissors will work, but it will damage your scissors, just know. So again, I need to loop it through twice. Now, I want you to notice, I am not leaving this all floppy. That is a common beginner's mistake. And what happens is when you leave a wire floppy like that, your painting will not hold flush to the wall very well. So you need to make it, you know, pretty taut. Now, I'm not saying you've got to crank it till it's absolutely rigidly. It's okay to have a little give, but you can see that this looks pretty horizontal. It's not that floppy. And I bend it over, and before I wind it around, I have to go through my D-ring again. So I'm bending it back through the D-ring. And now I'm going to go and have that second loop. So now I have 2 loops around my D-ring on that side. And I can go ahead and wind my loose wire. I don't need 5 feet of wire to wind around it. But I do need more than 1 inch. You know, I need enough to make sure this is secure and that it's not going to loosen, especially if it's a bigger painting that's heavier. Here we go. Okay. Now, these little ends that are left are a little bit pokey, so it's a good idea to wrap them in tape. And you can use painter's tape. You can use blue tape, that's no problem. I have upgraded my look a little bit. I use black electrical tape just because I think it looks a little nicer than the blue tape does, but use whatever you have. Okay, I'm going several times around the pointy area, and now I'm backtracking and going around a little bit of the wound up area on the wire. And then I'm pinching it all together so that it's a nice tidy little bundle. So there, a third of the way down approximately, horizontally, D-rings point inward in the direction of the wire. This wire has a little give to it, but not a lot. It's not pulling all the way up here. In this case, I don't have anything, this frame was made for sitting like this. And so there's no little pieces holding it in here. So I'm gonna use one of these little, what are they called? I forget what the little art things are called, but they are on the edge of the painting. I'll hold it in. See how it puts those in? And hopefully your frame, you're starting out with a better frame that already has these all the way around. And you don't need to do this. There we go. All done and ready to hang with a nice wire on the back that looks like it's professionally done and straight across. Not a lot of flop, and it's got those pointy things all taped up. Okay, I hope that helps you to get your own wiring done correctly on your frame. Thanks.